thank you for being here.
Of course, my pleasure.
I've known you for a little over a year, but I've never gotten the opportunity to sit down and talk to you face to face about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And from what I do know, I want to express what an honor it is to sit down with you and discuss these issues, not just to enlighten myself, but the state of Rhode Island, from policymakers to everyday citizens, as to its future in dealing with the opioid epidemic. I want to remind you that the camera is recording both audio and video, and that certain questions and your responses will not be used due to the amount of detail that may result. At the end, we can go over the questions that were asked and decide which ones can and cannot be used. I want you to be open with me and not worry about the camera. Nothing you don't want released will be released.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've seen interviews that you've done with other people,
Okay.
and I see the name on social media, and I gotta know why Maurice the Marathon Panda.
So I'm glad that you asked. And first of all, just thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored. I'm humbled. I'm grateful. All that good stuff. And I mean that. I was never an athlete as a young man. I played all sorts of sports, from Pop Warner basketball, Pop Warner football, CYO basketball, Little League baseball. To try to make a long story short, as a toddler, my grandmother gave me a panda bear stuffed animal. Okay, I was absolutely infatuated with this stuffed animal. Dragged it with me everywhere I went. I asked for National Geographic posters of panda bears, any material that I could get on panda bears, I wanted it, whether it was posters, encyclopedias, National Geographic issues. So I loved the animal. It had always been my favorite animal. My grandmother used to tell me, look at your legs, look at your legs, you have strong legs, you're going to be a runner. I never knew what that meant. I never really grasped that. As a toddler, as a youth, as an adolescent, never ran track or anything like that in junior high or high school. Didn't do any type of four-year university, so obviously I didn't do any collegiate athletics. When I took up running as a way to finally stay sober, because there was a couple of attempts, and we can get into that if you want, but there was a couple of attempts. Running was always my go-to. Let's kind of back up a little bit. I've always struggled with drugs and alcohol since the age of 19. Okay, drugs and alcohol were a huge hindrance. I had a substance abuse problem at a young age and continued to struggle with alcohol and hardcore drug abuse for years. Every time I tried to, say, dust myself off, clean myself up, straighten out, I would use running as my number one exercise. Some guys go to the gym, some guys hit the punching bag. I would use running as my let me run away from the problems I just caused last week. But I was never consistent with it. So I might go running on a Saturday morning to feel better about the mistakes I made on Friday night, but I didn't do it consecutively. I didn't do it continually. When I started to use running as the sole foundation of sobriety, and I remained sober, and I was using it as not only to be fit but to stay sober, I found social media, not just Facebook, all right? Posting runs and stuff on Facebook, people I think got sick of that a long time ago. When I was introduced to the Instagram community, I was immediately infatuated with it. Some of my buddies made fun of me because I was kind of like brand new to Instagram, and it had already been out for quite a few years. And I was like, what is this cool new platform? Like, people are posting running selfies and people actually like it. Like, you know what I mean? I actually used to call myself Ferrari Panda Running because I've always been obsessed with Ferraris. I love them. I can't afford them, but I dream about them. And I called myself Panda, A, because I'm half black and I'm half white, just like a panda bear, and because I love the animal from when my grandmother kind of instilled it in me. Somebody that I worked with, and I'm trying to bring this all together, somebody that I worked with at one of my most recent sales positions about 4 years ago said, hey Maurice, I noticed that you're on Instagram every day, you're trying to promote your running and stuff, you call yourself Ferrari Panda Running, don't you run marathons? Wouldn't it be cool to call yourself Marathon Panda instead of Ferrari Panda? Doesn't that make more sense? I thought it was the best idea ever. I actually thought I didn't want to jump at it too soon. I was so excited about it, but I didn't want him to know that I was that excited about it. I think I went home that night and changed my Instagram name and came into work the next day and told him I thought it was a cool idea. So now, but I'm still, to back it up, this was 3 years ago. I always had this big vision of Marathon Panda. Like, maybe nobody else in the state of Rhode Island even knows what that is. But in my head, I was like, this is a big idea. Here I am, a guy that never ran marathons before, okay? I've ran my first couple. I'm absolutely obsessed with the distance, the experience, the community, the self-challenge, the personal rewards, everything about running from the community to the actual physical activity I'm in love with. So I know in my head that this is going to be bigger than just calling myself Marathon Panda Maurice on an Instagram page. So that's kind of where it came from. And now I'm starting to vision, hey, what if I get like a shirt with the Marathon Panda on it? So I went to a buddy at the same job, okay, so a different buddy, and I knew he was a graphic artist, and I asked him, I said, how soon could you come up with an image of a panda running? He literally came back within 48 hours, okay? I kind of put him on the crunch because I said I have a race next week and I'd love to get a custom shirt made for it, because my mind's always going and I'm thinking, let's get the image, let's get the custom shirt, and then I'm going to go out there and then I'm going to show people who I am, right? And once again, it's my ego, big ego, helping me with this big vision that this is going to turn into something. He came back within 48 hours with the sketch. And I absolutely loved it. It had the sneakers. It was a panda running, half black, half white. It was awesome. So I said, I'm using it. And I literally went to one of those custom t-shirt shops a week later and had them print that design on the shirt, had it say my new Instagram name, Marathon Panda Maurice. And that's how it started. I wore the shirt to the race. A couple people asked me questions about it. I noticed a couple of people started following me because of it. Now, I love the attention. I'll say it 100 times. I do have a problem with my ego sometimes. But it was like, it just gave me such a sense of feeling cool, feeling fit in, feeling like now I'm being noticed. Now, the other part of me is, I'm never going to win a marathon, okay? I want to let everybody know how much fun I'm having when I'm out there and how awesome they are for being out there. I don't care if you're going to win the marathon or if you're going to be in last place. You're not at home on the couch. You're not at home, or you're not on the street corner hanging out doing bad things. You're not sitting in some room playing video games complaining about how life doesn't hand you opportunities. You've laced up, you've trained, you've prepared, you're out on the course for a 26-mile race. You deserve high fives, you deserve hugs, you deserve somebody to say, you're the man. And that's kind of what I took. I kind of took that role and ran with it, because after my first couple of races, my first couple of road races, I was like, I love that role of being a cheerleader, and I got a lot of positive feedback from it. I literally had people come up to me and say, hey, thanks for cheering me on, thanks for that high five. Your energy is contagious. So that gives me, now here I am, a former drug addict, okay? Hardcore drugs, hardcore alcoholic. So I need something. I need that affirmation. I need that pat on the back. I need that recognition to fuel my addictive personality, I guess. I don't have enough education on the whole psyche part of it, but I'm assuming those are the things that are fueling me now. The whole social media combined with the real life community, combined with the performance aspect of it and the rewards of actually getting a runner's high, all of that combined is what fuels my passion, my drive. I'm obsessed now with the running community, and it allows me to use social media and running as a platform to say, hey, guess what? I used to be a drug addict. I used to be an alcoholic. Now I use running. Now I use social media to stay clean, to stay sober. It's accountability to me. It's literally, and I get as graphic as saying, like, I used to be a guy that would trade a smartphone for drug money. Okay? I'm not afraid to say that. Now I would never give up my laptop, my smartphone. Those are my tools that I use to get on Facebook, to get on Instagram. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right. So hopefully I wasn't too long-winded there.
No, you're good. Let's see. I want to congratulate you on the New York City Marathon.
Thank you.
4 hours?
4 hours and 11 minutes.
Very good.
Thank
Very
you.
good. And I share the same thing, that I'm never out there to win. I'm just out there to have a good
Have
time
fun.
and to finish.
Yes, and to finish.
And I'm okay. I'm fine with walking in the back, and I love talking to people when I run. That's what I like to do. It's usually on a Sunday, and I usually run in the winter.
Okay.
So it's football, and so like, oh, Pats are playing today, and
Yeah.
I'll find someone who's against, and we'll just talk. And
Yeah.
that really, it's about that 8-year-old who's out there for their mother, just high-fiving people.
Exactly.
That's what I love. Cowbell fuels me.
Does it?
Cowbell fuels me. I love that. So we're gonna backtrack really far.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
East Providence.
East Providence. And did you move a lot as in childhood?
No. Born and raised in East Providence. My parents were given a home from my grandfather when I was about 5 years old. So we changed from living in a small apartment to a nice, beautiful home in a nice neighborhood in East Providence. I went to public school in East Providence. My parents are still together. As an adult, I traveled a little bit. I lived in Boston for 4 years. I lived in Miami for about 8 months. That didn't last due to alcohol and drugs, and it wasn't the right scene for me. And so I've always been a Rhode Island native, with the exception of living in Boston for 4 years.
So, when you were a child, you lived all in East Providence.
Yes.
Could you describe for me the neighborhood? And you live with both parents? Do you have any siblings?
I have a brother who's a year and a half younger than me, so we both grew up in East Providence, suburban neighborhood, raised ranches, playground and public school up the street. Like, I had to be home by curfew when the street lights came on. I'm just kind of painting a picture of my childhood. Really, really great upbringing as far as my parents were focused on chores, doing the right thing at school, getting good grades, being kind to others. Religion was never really forced on us. It was more like believe in God, say your prayers, do the right thing. I wasn't forced to go to any catechism school or anything like that. Trying to paint a little bit of a picture here. Do you want me to go? You do have another question? Do you want me to kind of go into the drug use, or is?
It's gonna lead kind of
Okay.
into that. So what did your parents do for a living, or do they still do it?
So my father has recently retired. My mom's still working. My mom is a nursing assistant, and she's full-time at a local nursing home. She did medical billing for years as well, but stepped back from that because it was tough to do both. My dad was, very blue-collar, middle-class hotel worker. So like a lead houseman, setting up for events and stuff like that at one of the major hotel chains downtown Providence, and he had been there. So as a kid, my father worked for hotels. I remember him taking us, like when WWF was big and the wrestlers would stay in Providence. I got to meet some of them. I met Sugar Ray Leonard at a young age. Kit and Michael Knight from Knight Rider. Do you remember that show? I actually met David Hasselhoff, and I saw the car with the talking car and stuff. So that was a big deal in the 80s, you know what I mean? To be able to say you did that. So some cool things growing up.
That's I got into a little of WWF.
Yeah, I'm probably dating myself. Remember, I just turned 40, so I'm an old man.
WWE now.
Yeah.
But, we did that. I asked, did you have any specific interests growing up like pandas?
So I touched on that, yeah.
Absolutely. I asked this knowing that it would lead to your grandmother.
Okay.
I said, when you were younger, did you have someone special in your life, someone who encouraged you? And you spoke about your grandmother.
So my grandmother, and once again, I'm almost 40. I was about 25 probably when she passed away. So it's been 15 years. But prior to that, when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, she used to put that in my head about my strong legs. You're going to be a runner. And those memories stick in my head now. But once again, at 18, 19 years old, I wasn't competing on a Division One track team. Do you know what I mean? I was never a runner. Now I can kind of call myself a runner, maybe.
I would call you. Yeah, I do the same with me. I don't call myself, but I would call you an
Okay.
exceptional, optimistic runner.
Thank you.
Um. Okay. So you spoke a little bit about 19 years old was the point where you started to get into addiction, correct?
Correct, but I can be more specific. So once again, both parents telling me the do's and the don'ts. You know, kids at school are going to be smoking weed. Don't do it. Kids at school are going to be sneaking beers or alcohol. Don't do it. Maybe not those maybe not those exact statements, but what I'm saying is I had a mom and dad at home that were telling me the do's and the don'ts. Okay, right around it was 11th grade, driver's education time. I decided to take driver's ed at an all-girl Catholic school because the driver's ed at my public school was filled up. I went there to take driver's ed. I hate to put the blame on somebody else, but my specific situation, I was kind of using marijuana to impress a girl. Okay? I've had some experience public speaking to high school students, and I like to kind of shed the light on that because it helps people relate to it. I was one of those kids that when there was a DARE presentation with an East Providence police officer in the room, I was in the front row paying attention because I believed in that stuff. I said marijuana is for losers. You know, smoking pot is for losers. Drugs are for losers. I didn't even know what cocaine was until 18, 19 years old. I kind of knew what marijuana was only from the television commercials saying don't do it, maybe some movies that I wasn't supposed to be watching, maybe some music that I wasn't supposed to be listening to. But I was kind of naive as a 15-year-old in that time era compared to say a 15-year-old of today knows everything, right? I didn't know that much. I didn't know that much about drug use or anything. Experimented with my first joint in 11th grade, and like I said, it was to try to impress a girl. Before you know it, I'm smoking daily. So I was an honor roll student at East Providence High School, took SATs early, was accepted to a special program for the Johns Hopkins University at a young age to take the SATs at a very young age. So what I'm saying is I was always in college prep classes, always a straight A student, did the experimentation with marijuana in 11th grade. By 12th grade, I was smoking daily. I firmly believe that it completely changed me as an individual because I went from one of those guys that respected authority, that listened to teachers, that respected and appreciated teachers, to now I'm too cool. Now I'm coming into school stoned. I'm hanging out with guys that get stoned before school. And I think that I'm too cool to listen to the teacher that's telling me marijuana is a gateway drug. Marijuana is going to lead you to this. Marijuana is going to keep you out of college. You know what I mean? I'm thinking they're crazy. I'm still getting straight A's. I'm smoking weed before school. Like, I'm cool. That's what I'm thinking, right? So for them to tell me that marijuana would lead to something else, I thought they were absolutely crazy. Because here I am, I would say I would never touch cocaine. I would never touch a needle. Are you serious? Like, that's where my mind was at. I would think of a needle or heroin as like some homeless junkie on the street that people walk by. So 12th grade, the marijuana was an issue to the tune of me and my buddy getting suspended, me almost not graduating on time due to marijuana possession. We got into a lot of trouble that year, okay? Once again, my mom and dad telling me what to do, the right things to do, the wrong things to do, and I was being very defiant at that age. Once I graduated high school, I was still smoking and starting to drink daily. Hadn't even turned 18 yet. My son was born the summer after I graduated high school. Once again, things that I didn't do listening to my father as far as unprotected sex and stuff like that. I used that as an excuse to not pursue my 4-year college plans, okay? I had tons of applications Salve Regina, Providence College, Rhode Island College, URI. I still had great SAT scores, even though I had that suspension senior year. I was still a great candidate for a lot of local schools. I just never pursued that path because here I am thinking I'm cool. I'm smoking weed. I have 2 part-time jobs. You know what I mean? So I always thought I had everything figured out. Once 19 years old came around, 20 years old came around, I experimented with cocaine for the first time. I also landed my first full-time sales job, which I became immediately successful at. So I'm making big money for my age bracket, and I'm experimenting with cocaine, okay? Bad combination. Not only was I experimenting with cocaine, I was experimenting with it as like a dealer. So I had somebody giving me a large amount, telling me how to bag it up, telling me how to sell it, and I wasn't supposed to be using it. Well, guess what? I started experimenting with it, and I like to joke around about it, I became my #1 customer. Okay, I was literally making transactions every day to try to keep up with the fact that I spent $80 on my own habit, which turned to $100 to $200. The cocaine abuse became so bad so rapidly that I just lied to everybody. I lost a lot of friends. I would lose jobs over and over again. I was the #1 Toyota salesman at that particular dealership month after month after month. They just got sick of the outside distractions, me coming in late, me having bloodshot eyes, me smelling like alcohol, me missing an important meeting, me sneaking to the bathroom to get high, so I got fired. At that age, 21, 22, 23, I was getting fired from a lot of jobs. I managed to get myself through a 1-year computer school, a computer tech school, landed a job right out of the school, got fired 3 months later for drug abuse reasons. So the alcohol and drugs hindered me for 8 to 12 plus years. The cocaine abuse got way worse. So I was labeled, I was a cokehead, okay? For years, I was a cokehead. I was the guy that you'd go home and tell your friends, oh, too bad about Maurice, you know, he parties too much, you know, he's such a good kid, such a smart guy. I thought he was going to be going to URI. Did you hear that he just got fired from his new job? Like that kind of stuff. Like I had friends and family that cared about me, but I'm sure it was getting to the point where they were like, when's this guy going to learn? Not only did I get fired from Toyota, I got fired from Lexus. I got fired from Volvo. I would brush myself off, quit the drugs and alcohol for a few weeks or a month or two, just to clean myself up, get a clear head, go get a shirt and tie, go get a new job, and screw it up. Okay? Now, mind you, my son's growing up at this time. I'm lying to everybody, family members, friends. Oh, I'm not doing drugs. No, I don't have a coke problem. People know. I never have money, and I'm always working. I'm lying about where I am, where my time's being spent, and stuff like that. I started to look like, you know, someone that does coke all the time looks. One of the things I used to say when I had a problem with coke was that I would never try crack, okay? Eventually I was introduced to crack cocaine. That became a huge, huge problem for years. And then to get into the heroin use, I was always, and still to this day, am scared of needles. And I'm not a big fan. When I was a drug addict, I wanted the upper high. I wanted the energetic, I'm up, I want to talk, I want to drink all night kind of high. Where heroin and opiates kind of give you that, it's a downer. I was never into that. Well, addiction is so dangerous and so dark that it brings you to places that you would never think you'd be in. I was in a dirty, nasty apartment somewhere in South Providence, and I let somebody administer heroin and cocaine mix with a needle in my arm, okay? The next thing I know, I'm waking up in the back of an ambulance, and they're asking me my name, who the president is, if I can remember my address and stuff like that. And that wasn't enough to snap me out of it. I went back to the streets and used again. So, I mean, hopefully I'm not being too long-winded, but I mean, that was my first of 2 accidental overdoses because of heroin and cocaine mixed in the needle, coming from a guy that used to pay attention in the DARE presentations and say, I'll never smoke weed. Then when I smoked weed, I said, I'll never touch cocaine. I'll never touch heroin. And addiction is so dark and so dangerous that it takes away those I'll nevers.
Okay.
Okay. Was that too much?
No,
No.
I'm just seeing how many boxes got checked.
Okay.
Because I've listened to some interviews, so I know, and I love it.
Oh, okay,
Because
good.
You're answering questions that I both have already thought of and that I didn't think of.
Okay,
so.
good.
One of my questions, trying to see where it is, but you mentioned somewhere in South Providence there was that moment where an accidental overdose happened. Was that a regular place to go?
It was. So it was a place where I felt comfortable because I knew what was going on there. There was drug use, there was alcohol, it was accepted there. It was a woman and her boyfriend that owned the apartment. And that was the thing. The crazy thing about addiction is I would be pulled to that area, to that neighborhood. I would be having a great week, a great 2 weeks, back on my feet, working a job, maybe working construction, maybe telling myself I'm not going to do drugs, I'm not going to drink this week. And before you know it, at the end of the week, my paycheck is in my hand, and I'm going back to that neighborhood, back to that house where I felt comfortable. Do you know what I mean? It was like, addiction's hard to explain because people ask, why would you keep doing the same thing when you know the results? You know that if you go to that house, you're putting yourself at risk for a drug overdose. You're definitely going to blow all your money. You're definitely going to be gone for a long period. Do you know? Does that make sense? So, but an addict doesn't think like that. An addict's not thinking rationally. I'm rushing to that house as soon. So it was. To answer your question, yes, it was a normal place that I went to a lot.
I don't know if you want to be too specific.
Okay.
About, like, not address, but like general location or like how many stories the building was. Like,
so it was like a 3-family house off of the Broadway area of Providence. So it might be considered West End more so than South Providence.
Okay.
And it was but it was a dirty place. Like, if you saw a bed bug, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary. If you saw a rat outside of the building, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary. If it smelled like trash or dog pee or something like that, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary. It wasn't a place that you would stop by and hang out before you went to go to a Red Sox game or something. Do you know what I mean? It was a dirty, nasty place.
Absolutely.